Hey guys, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. I'm Captain Mike. I do whiskey and book reviews, and today it is whiskey Heaven Hill Grain to Glass. I picked these two bottles up in August this year in Phoenix at Total Wine and More. I've had them obviously for a while, and I just opened them just a couple of weeks ago. I've had several pours of them, and to be fully honest, I did film this video before Thanksgiving, intending to edit it while I was in Phoenix, and I had some major microphone issues, and so this is a redo. Grain to glass, what does that even mean? It's kind of like a shop local for the whiskey, trying to show how local can they get the components of the whiskey. What are the provenance, like where do these components come from? And they're featuring in this year's collection the Beck's 6158 strain of corn. I don't know anything really about it. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but to someone I guess that is really cool. If that means something to you, great. They do also have the wheated bourbon, and I don't have that one. They didn't have it at the Total Wine & More when I went there. I did honestly see the bottle on the shelf at Heaven Hill when I went to Kentucky in September, and I didn't pick it up. Oftentimes, there's something in my brain that just has me pass oftentimes on the wheated bourbons, which I know is a mistake, because I do enjoy wheated bourbons when I have them. I do like the bottles. I feel like they're reminiscent of the Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond, just kind of beefier and better looking, kind of classic, nice artwork, and some good information on the front of the bottle. I wish more distilleries were open like that. Let's just use this kind of for our specs and stats and then get to it. It was distilled in 2017, released 2024. The website says it is 6 years old. Again, the Beck's 6158 corn. The mash bill is 35% corn, 35% rye, 52% corn, and 13% malted barley. This is non-chill filtered, and it is not barrel strength. They do cut this down. The same for the wheated bourbon. The rye, on the other hand, it is barrel strength. And they cut this down to, and it's a nice 107 proof. That's a good amount of information, I feel like, on the front of the bottle. MSRP is $99 for both these bottles. I paid $114.99, and I think $115 is pretty much the national average for these bottles. So I was right there. I was okay paying $115 for them. And so let's get the bourbon first, and then we'll do the rye and just share with you what I think about them. Have you had these? What are your thoughts? These have been in the glass here for about almost half an hour. It kind of really smells like whiskey inside the house here. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, this isn't usually how I have my whiskey. I'm usually in the back room, kind of in the studio. We suffered a flood event from Hurricane Helene, and honestly, we're going to tear this whole house down in the next couple of weeks. So the house is empty. We have block walls, studs, and concrete floor. I do have a conditioned storage unit, and all these whiskeys in this week, they're all going into the storage unit. So I don't know how the channel is going to look here in the near future, but we'll see. We'll do the best we can. It is just it's a nice smelling whiskey. It's a nice bourbon. There's a nice, it's like a sweet vanilla note, citrus, kind of an orangey, citrusy. Just a hint of spice, no real alcohol in the nose. It's pleasant, it's not wowing me, it's not blowing me away, but I do appreciate it, and I think it is a nice invitation to this pour. Cheers, my guys. Again, it's those same notes. If you like bourbon, like a nice classic bourbon, this has got it for you here. There's a bit of a butterscotchy note in there. Nice, that vanilla note is in there. It's got some fruit elements to it. It comes on with that fruitiness, that sweetness first, but underline it, and then on the next wave, there is a bit of spice rolling in there. 35% rye, to me, that's great. Like for a Kentucky bourbon to have 35% rye, I think that is pretty nice. It's up there. The bourbon itself is not blowing me away. Same as the nose, right? It's decent. It's great. It's not super weighty. It's just a nice bourbon. It's a nice pour. No one's ever gonna drink this whiskey and say, this is not a good pour whiskey. At the same time, you're not gonna be like, this is blowing me away. It's a nice, solid pour. Not crazy weighty. It has a sweetness. It has a bit of spice. It's not a great, long, lingering finish. It's just leaves you with some nice bourbony, a little bit of spice and sweetness there. But mostly sweetness, a bit of fruitiness. Should you pay $115 for this bottle? Honestly, I'm happy to have it. I think at that price though, I think at $99, you can be happy, you'll be happy paying that, or okay paying that. $115, beyond that, certainly I would definitely do a pass on that. There are other bourbons that are cheaper and I think better. I don't know if you can hear that dog barking in my video here. I've got some yappy dog. I've got all my windows closed, but I hope you can't hear it. I don't know if you do. I don't know. Yap, yap, yap when I'm walking by. Okay, Heaven Hill, grain to glass, the rye. This is the one that I was excited about. Definitely if I was in a store not knowing anything about these bottles at all, I just saw a rye and a bourbon, and I could only buy one, I'm gonna buy the rye. That's just the way that I work. Definitely a rye guy. Again, a Beck 6158 corn, distilled in 2017, released 2024. 63% rye, 24% corn, 13% malted barley for a barrel strength, 123.2 proof. Non-chill filtered as well. That is, I think, a great mash bill. It's definitely higher. It's not a high rye and it's not a low rye or a Kentucky style rye. You know, it's not that 95.5 MGP or 80-20 High West, and it's not like Woodford Reserve, 51% rye, that barely legal rye. So it is, I think, a decent mash bill for a Kentucky rye. I'll give it that. That's a nice nose. It is a more complex nose than the bourbon. It is, to me, more what I'm looking for in a whiskey. It is nice and pleasant. I do think it is a little grassy, which is typical for a rye whiskey. Not all, but some of the rye whiskeys come out with that grassy note. It's a bit oaky. There's a little bit of sweetness to it as well. Maybe like a brown sugary, but it's nice and pleasant. Like this is twice as good a nose to me for what my preferences are over the bourbon. I feel like that's a decent bourbon. It's a good bourbon, but I feel like I could get that from a lot of different bottles on the shelf and for cheaper. Again, I did pay $115 for this bottle as well. All right, cheers. Heaven Hill Grain to Glass Rye. Off the bat, I can tell it's more viscous. It has more authority and weight than the bourbon. That cask strength really shines through. It just gives it more of a presence. I do really like it. And the bourbon had that sweetness coming first and then the spice rolling in. This is leading. It's leading with that spice coming in first. It's a nice rye, just I'm really enjoying it. Some rye spices. There's some sweetness kind of comes on the back end as opposed to the front end. Let's go in again. I can't get over how much heavier it is. And it also has that butterscotch sweetness, which rolls into some caramel there. It is nice, but throughout the entire pour, there is that spice just coming in, and it's leaving me with that as well. It is nice. Again, weighty, authoritative, rye spice and spicy, butterscotchy, caramel. It's got all of that in there. One note that I got on this in my previous pour, and it was like after the camera was off and after I was kind of marinating with that thought, it was hitting some chocolate notes to me, but it was like well after I was done with the pour and just kind of thinking about it and still enjoying the finish. It was nice and long and weighty. I think there's a bit of a smokiness to it as well. Like, okay, so 115 for this, I'm okay with that. If you can get it for 99, certainly you should pick that up. I'm happy to have this bottle. To me, this is more of a $99 whiskey, or 115, certainly than the bourbon. Decent pour, not blowing me away, but happy to have it. This is closer to my alley, what I really enjoy, that rye, and I think it's not really hurt by maybe a lower rye than what I totally prefer, because it has a more roundness to it, maybe a little more complexity than say your typical MGP based rye whiskey. So I'm a fan of that, and from what I've read, people even prefer the wheated bourbon over the rye. So man, if I can find one of those now, I'll be on the lookout and definitely going to pick that up. But definitely a fan. You know, this to me is greater than this. Definitely a solid, you know, okay to good pour. This is a really solid pour to me. Let me know what your thoughts are on. Have you had these bottles? Are you looking for them? They've been out for a little while now. They've been available. So I think, you know, I mean, I see them sitting on the shelves now. So I think those who are really excited about them have picked them up already. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are. All right, guys, that's it for today. If you've enjoyed the video, like it, subscribe to see more of my content. Again, I do whiskey and book reviews, but for now, my friends, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great, and wear that damn hat. Cheers.